What excuses do you use for not helping people, not giving to people more specifically? I'm Zach. This is The Average Christian, a project simply about having a relationship with God, what that means, how to live that in practical terms, and keeping ourselves accountable. So we're talking about giving. Most of us, when we think of giving, we think of metal plates or baskets with the little felt at the bottom, and they're passed around on Sundays, and you take up a collection. That's such a small part of what it means to give. It is a part of it, but a small part. I want to take you, though, to a story about Jesus in Luke 17. You have to understand leprosy, and I don't have the time to explain here, but you have to understand leprosy to be able to appreciate this story even more and understand the deterioration and understand how contagious it is and was and how little they could do about it. So much that they had colonies, and for all I know, they still exist today, but had colonies, and if you passed by someone with leprosy, they had to yell out unclean. It was embarrassing. It was lonely. And Jesus comes near to these 10 lepers, and they know who he is, and he approaches them. And I cannot imagine what that must have felt like to know that the one who can work miracles, whether they knew or understood or whether they believed, it's not clear. But they know Jesus can do something about it. Let's read here in Luke chapter 10. On the way to Jerusalem, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee, and as he entered the village, he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance and lifted up their voices, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." And as they went, they were cleansed. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice, and he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Can imagine. I want to be thankful like that. I do. I don't want it to take something drastic and a miracle, literally in this case, for me to be that kind of thankful. But here he is at Jesus' feet, I'm sure weeping and crying, and out with a loud voice it says here, and he's a Samaritan, by the way. They and Jews hated each other. That's the best way I can put it, at least succinctly for now. Then Jesus answered this Samaritan, "Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" And he said to him, "Rise, go your way. Your faith has made you well." So how does that relate to giving? Because there are all kinds of reasons that I hear us use. And I don't know, I may have used them at times for why we don't give to help people. We say, well, we don't know what they're going to do with this money. That's usually the big problem. We don't want to give them money because we need to be good stewards, which is funny because it's true that we are stewards of what God has blessed us with. But every time you see stewardship in the New Testament, it relates spiritually. We like to push that over, and many of us make excuses for why we don't want to help somebody. We don't want to be taken advantage of. Well, I don't know what they're going to go do with this. And I'm not just going to give them money. I mean, I'll take them to the store and buy them some food, which is fine and good, which is if you got time to do that, or go buy them some gas, whatever the case is. I'm not degrading those ways of helping people. I am talking about, though, however, people that use excuses to get out of giving to help somebody else. And that's the point of giving, by the way, is so it will benefit someone else. I used to think when I was a kid, like, why are we giving money to God? He don't need money. It's all his anyway. Who's backing this stuff up? Kind of like in the same vein with the tooth fairy. All this giving is done to benefit other people. Now, why do I mention being taken advantage and bring up Jesus with these 10 lepers? If you knew that helping 10 people with whatever you were going to give, 9 of them were going to be grateful at all. I mean, we're talking life-changing, healing their leprosy, life-changing. If you knew you could change somebody's life by giving them $1 million, and you have 10 million and 10 people, and you know 9 of those people aren't going to come back and thank you, which $1 million compared to Jesus healing is nothing, would you still do it? 1 came back. And then you think, for all of us who make the excuse of why we won't help somebody else because we don't know them, I don't know that. Of course, Jesus has the advantage of knowing people and knowing their hearts. You don't know. It is a risk. But we're following the same Jesus who got up at the Sermon on the Mount and said that very few were going to find the narrow way and many were going to find the broad way. And he still kept preaching and he still sacrificed himself. And by the way, this same God you take advantage of, and so do I every day. We take it for granted. We don't say thank you. We disrespect him every day. And you're worried about being disrespected by one person, so you refuse to do what God says. Let me tell you this as well, just by way of encouragement. Your role from God, if you look over in, there's lots of verses you can use here in 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 7. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart. In 1 Corinthians 16, as we have prospered in the King James, not reluctantly or under compulsion because I have to, because God's making me do it, my Christian ball and chain, for God loves a cheerful giver. He wants you to want to do this and want to help other people. And so if we're worried about being taken advantage of and we're using that as an excuse, then we're really being selfish. And I know I had some other points to get out here, but mainly this, I wanted us to see Jesus. We take advantage of him. We take him for granted every day, and he continues daily to be merciful, to be gracious toward us, to not hold it against us. So please don't use that. Don't make that a cop-out for why you want to hoard up. I know congregations who are sitting on, I'm talking about churches now, churches who are sitting on thousands, sometimes tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands, who could be doing such great work to help people. And by the way, Jesus only helped people in order to give an opportunity to teach. And that's what's most important. Jesus would give away anything to however many people if just one would show this gratitude, would show this kind of faith, and be saved. Forget being healed from leprosy. He was saved. His faith saved him, and he went on his way with much more to rejoice about than good skin and a recovery from a terrible disease. So please consider this when you're thinking about, when you're judging other people, when you're making excuses as to why you won't help somebody else. Think about Jesus. Think about what he continues to do every day. I want to thank you for being with us today. If you're joining us on YouTube and you haven't yet subscribed, you can hit this button right here. Please do that. It helps us out, and we appreciate all of our subscribers. If you want to see what we released last week or what YouTube recommends, it's over here on this side. For our podcast listeners, thank you as well for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review. We appreciate you being with us, and everyone share this to help somebody else.